What's up, Otakus? It's your tour guide here. Yeah, there's a lot going on, and I don't know when. Uh, Israel launched an attack on Iran, and Iran retaliated, and it just seems like we're living in a very uncertain times right now, especially what's been going on in the Middle East, what's been going on in Ukraine, and what's going on with immigration in this country, tariffs, and how that's going to impact the economy, or just the impact. We rely on immigrants to work the jobs that most Americans don't want to work, and right now we're just starting to see the initial impacts of what that would be like. We had people were saying, you take immigrants out of this labor force, and that would just have a deep impact, economic impact on businesses, especially the agricultural industry. So I just find it funny, like with all the talk about concern over costs and returning manufacturing to this country and all that, that putting farms at risk, which is, our food is a major export. Our food is what keeps the cost of living. That's the focus of our monthly budget, right? Aside from utilities and all that, really food, what we put on the table, how we eat, that's our major uh, essential, in our budget, month to month, day to day, hour to hour. And if we can't afford to put food on the table because farms go out of business, um, that's a telltale sign that your country is heading for uh, a disaster. And so, with all the things going on, it just it's a little bit worrisome, and I don't know. I'm interested to see if other people are feeling as anxious as I am, but there doesn't seem to be much um, good news these days, and you know, I don't know. Maybe things will get better, but uh, I just it just seems like every little thing that's happened since this year, the start of this year, it's really compounded in a negative way, even though we haven't felt the impacts on the economy yet. When it does hit, it's going to hit rather quick, right? All we need is really just some bad data, uh, stock markets tanking, people just being more conservative with their money, and then that leading into a spiraling effect where businesses fail, uh, mortgages Uh, you have a lot of loans that default. There's just uh, a lot to for the country to lose um, once things go south. You're already seeing a lot of investment flow out of the country. You're saying that the dollar, the devaluation of the dollar happening slowly, and I mean, it just feels like the U.S. is heading toward some, it just feels like a repeat of the last century in a lot of ways, where the U.S. was in an dire economic situation, they enter a war. Um, Things just feel like kind of like history's repeating itself, but at the same time, it just feels like we're in uncharted territory, and there's a lot of uh, worry that the standing that U.S. has on the global stage is at threat, really. And the threat is coming from the fact that the US system is failing, and that the system in other countries is having more success in terms of where those economies, the way of life, the way of utilizing technology to be more efficient um, with managing resources and energy. It just feels like other countries are going up and America's heading in the opposite direction. Um, and I do think American bureaucracy, which is built on, serving corporate interests, not public interests, is a big problem in this country. But it's gotten to a point where, like, you know, it just seems like the problem, no matter how much money or time you throw at something, it just can't resolve itself, because the leadership is really just focused on not what's best for people, but what's best for companies, what's best for profits. And that kind of thinking and ideology is just, um, it's worked for a long time, but it's starting to unravel now. Starting to unravel now, because America's no longer doing things. Its vision of the future in the world is no longer the viable one, and America doesn't really have like a innovative, like, pivot to what will work. Um, anyway, those are my thoughts, and Otaku Weekly is we show off comic books and talk about the past, and I'm still going to do that today. But I just did want to kind of like address what's been going on, and anytime you have these conflicts, uh, warfare, people being displaced, people dying, um, and then on top of that, economic uncertainty pointing toward really economic collapse. it's it's hard to really enjoy anything. Uh, and ultimately, like, the reason I love comic books is it's an escape, but um, at some point, you got to acknowledge escape from what? Escape from, I mean, if at some point you got to kind of deal with these issues. But anyway, happy Father's Day weekend. I do want to show you what my son made on a positive note. I mean, this little, I feel like, his preschool, um, I mean, this is like a wind chimes and stuff. I'll treasure this forever. He looks like he put a lot of effort into that with his teacher's help. But I very much enjoyed getting this from my son today. And let's get into it. Otaku Weekly. What do we got on the docket? Well, the first update is I actually got tickets for Superman. I think I was one of the first to get tickets because, yeah, I just wasn't going to miss out on watching it opening weekend. But fortunately, they weren't selling like hotcakes initially, so I was just able to go in, pretty much get ideal seats, kind of right up in the middle section, raised section. It is in IMAX, so I will be watching it on a big IMAX screen. Paid $21 for the tickets. That's a lot for a movie ticket, but I feel like that's what movie tickets go for these days. The question is like, if I'm going to get popcorn to watch the movie, and if I do decide to get popcorn, which popcorn bucket to get. There seem to be some good ones. I like the Crypto Dog Bowl popcorn bucket. Although it doesn't seem like you get too much popcorn. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm looking at the dimensions incorrectly. But a standard dog bowl, that's not a lot of popcorn. So there's different options there. We'll take a look. I don't know if I'm going to necessarily get a popcorn. I figure I don't need necessarily like a memento from watching Superman, even though I think I am going to enjoy it and think it is somewhat of a, it will be sort of a turning point in the character's history for sure. Because I think all indications are, I mean, I have people that I work with who could have cared less about Superman now saying they're excited to see the movie because of crypto and you know James Gunn's vision and all that. So yeah, all indications are it's going to be pretty successful, and we'll see where it goes from there. I'm sure the movie will be very enjoyable. From the little clips I've seen of it, everything looks great. I just like the rhythm of the dialogue, and a lot of the scenes and the special effects look, like it's going to be a grade material, right? So yeah, looking forward to that. So the period I really wanted to focus on as we approach the movie is to focus on the first Superman movie. We're talking the original 1978 Christopher Reeve, Richard Donner uh, Superman movie, starring Margot Kidder, Gene Hackman, Ned Beatty, and you know, oh, what's her name? I'm forgetting Miss Tessmacher's name. Eve. No, not that's Eve Tessmacher. What's the actress's name? She's a very talented actress. Look, I got to look it up here. Give me a second here. Um, mm, Valerie Perrine. Valerie Perrine, the original Miss Tessmacher. Um, so I really wanted to focus on when the movie was released, uh, December of 1978. But I didn't have a comic from December of 1978 because, to be honest, I'm not a big Bronze Age collector. I'm probably more Copper Modern Age. That was my collecting era. And I didn't have that specific date, December 1978, a book from that date. So I picked a Superman book from around that period. So um, the book we landed on was a book from, I think this was March of 1979, a couple months later. And we just, the number one song in May of 1979. The number one song in May of 1979 was a song by Peaches and Herb. It's what is it called? Um, I'm forgetting the name of the song. It's not a song that I know all that well, but it's a famous song. Like if you hear it, you know it. Um, but that was the number one song, and I just thought, again, it's a great song and all, but it's not a song that I'm all that excited about. I looked at other songs on the 1979 list. I was really too young to really know any of those songs or I've listened to any of those songs. Um, but in 1979 is when I watched the film. I was, again, very young, 4 years old, and came out of the theater just, you know, kind of in love with Superman and absolutely like him coming out of the theater wanting to be Superman, wanting to just being so inspired by the story. Um, and that's a long movie for a little kid. And I think initially, when I was watching it, I'm sure I was just like not very confused as to what was going on because Superman wasn't coming out. And it probably wasn't until like around the middle of the film where it started to click. Oh, okay, now Superman's grown up, and that's when you just started kind of getting exciting when he started saving everybody and all the action related sequences where he came out. Um, so yeah, I mean, it was I think a tough movie for a little kid to kind of sit through, but my parents were there, my sister was there, and we all kind of just watched because I think I was mesmerized by it was my first movie, right? So I was mesmerized by the experience of watching a movie outside on a big screen, but the other part was watching Superman. And that I was not the only one in 1979 that thought Superman was a movie worth watching. Ended up being the number one movie from 1979 in terms of uh, revenue. It earned something like 193 million at the box office, which by today's standards isn't much. But I'm sure if you were to put the 1979 uh, put that amount and updated it to today's inflationary calculation, then let's see if ChatGPT can do that for us. I'm gonna show you the power of AI here. How much is $194 million in 1979 worth today? So yeah, they're saying 194 million in 1979 would be worth approximately 850 million in CPI index, using the accounting for today's dollars and inflation. $850 million. That is a very successful film, even by today's standards. So there you go. It was the number one movie in 1979. And again, the book I wanted to, well, the song we wanted to feature and the book I'm going to show off is from May of 1979. So we'll get that going here. That is Smashing Pumpkins with 1979. That song came out in 1995, I believe, 94, 95. And I love that song. It's a very 90s song. Just had that really like kind of groovy, funky vibe. Wasn't um, It was a nice mellow kind of rock song, kind of a good song to kind of cruise to, I guess, kind of listen to in your room. Um, yeah, and it kind of puts you in that again 90s, reflecting back on 1979. You're obviously there's like a nostalgic factor there, just built into the song. But again, 1979. I was so young. I'm just trying to now um, parse my memories of 1979, which is what we're going to do. But first off, yes, this is what comic books looked like in 1979. We have this beautiful Ross Andrew cover of Mr. Mitzelpick, and kind of it's a fun cover here. He's turned the Daily Planet into this house of newspapers with headlines, and there's actually even a headline there: Superman movie, a smash hit. It looks like it's saying. Um, but yeah, 40-cent cover there, DC Bullet logo, all the good stuff you want from this period. Beautiful artwork, comic book artwork. Um, yeah, I mean, what more can you say? It's a great comic book. Happy to feature it. And so in 1979, uh, I was living on the military installation located in Fort Dix, New Jersey. Fort Dix is kind of like a training facility and an army base. And my sister and I and my parents were living in this sort of like, I guess it was military housing. Um, we were going to a military school. I was in preschool. Um, but again, I have a lot of photos that kind of reinforce life during that period. I think my most vivid memories are um, getting toys for Christmas. I got like a super arm stretch like thing, and I got a Snoopy snow cone machine. I got this dog that you pull the tail, it kind of fetched its own ball and everything. Um, and then I had a really nice. I mean, you guys won't know what this is today because I don't think maybe they still produce it, but it was a big wheel. It was like this like tricycle made out of plastic that you kind of pedaled, and it just drove like a like a motorcycle, I guess, but it was pedal powered. And yeah, I just remember mine having like these like on the handlebars it had these like uh, streamers. And again, you could do this thing where you pull on the brake and you kind of skid out, and I had that as well. It was just I rode that thing everywhere, the big wheel, in my little neighborhood there in Fort Dix. Ice cream machine, the ice cream truck, I should say. The ice cream truck would come around during summertime, and we'd go out and get ice cream. Um, so a lot of good memories, and also, it was interesting because the school I went to, uh, everybody was from the military family there, um, but it was a largely black community. So I was, probably the only Asian kid among mostly uh, black children, maybe a couple white children mixed in here and there. I mean, you look at the photos, I'm just basically like at a black school, being like the only Asian kid there. But I was never meant to, I was never made to feel different. My teacher took very good care of me. She was a, very caring black woman, my first teacher. And yeah, there was never any kind of discrimination or anything like that. I was just one of the many kids in that military school environment. And then, I think we were again, I was in New Jersey for I want to say a year or two, and then we moved to Fort Washington State, where my dad was then stationed at in Fort Lewis, and that's where we made our home. We lived in like just right outside of Tacoma, or right outside the base. Um, and then, yeah, eventually my dad transitioned into civilian life after his service. You know, kind of doing National Guard stuff and all that as he transitioned out. So all in all, um, that's my memory of my time in New Jersey. Again, I was very young, and I just remember, watching Superman on the big screen. Um, and that's when my love affair with the character started. And even after we moved away and all that, Superman was going very strong through, the Hanna Barbera Super Friends, like Saturday morning cartoon. I don't know if they were reruns or if they're actually playing at the time. I think they're reruns because they're from the 70s, but they carried on it over into the 80s. So we're just watching Super Friends and uh, the Hall of Justice versus the Legion of Doom, Saturday morning cartoons. That was great. That was a great introduction into the DC, universe, and it's kind of what stuck. I didn't really read comic books to get to know DC characters. It was all through the Saturday morning cartoons. I mean, it wouldn't be, another, I think, almost, I want to say another 10 years before I would start reading DC. Well, no, 86. So, 79 to 86 is what, 7 years? It won't be another 7 years till I actually started reading like Batman comic books and DC comic books. So, um, yeah, it was a period of just cartoons and the movie that got me uh, bought into Superman, as well as all the cool toys that I had, Superman related toys. I had the Underoos. I had the Superman Underoos. I mean, that was a game changer. Something I probably just wore without washing, just constantly. It was my favorite thing to wear on top of like pants and everything, shirt and everything. Um, that was cool, and yeah, I was my parents didn't mind me, or my parents didn't mind me. Like they got me a lot of Superman stuff, because I would ask for it. I'd be like, they would probably ask me like, "Hey, what do you want for your birthday?" and all this. I would just say Superman stuff because I had the Superman mobile. Uh, I had this like I want to say it's like a 12-inch doll where you could put the spandex Superman suit and the boots on. That was a really cool toy because you could like literally like take strip Superman and just be this naked muscular guy, and then put on his suit, and you'd have the cape and everything. You'd kind of button it up and put the boots on, and it was Superman. So that was just a fun doll to play with. And then I had these like recordings of like kind of like radio episodes, just audio recordings of like Superman adventures. And I think that was from the 70s as well, um, which I listened to all the time. That was fun. It had a Mr. Mitzelpick story in it. It had a couple other stories in it, but the Mitzelpick story was memorable because he had to get to Mitzelplick to say his name backwards, and he tricks him into saying it, and then Mitzelplick's like, "Oh, I'll get you," as he disappears back into his dimension and all that. So that kind of stuff was really, again, everything was uh, geared toward me just wanting more Superman stuff. And I luckily we had Superman 2 come out and then Superman 3 come out. I saw all of those movies in the theaters. Um, I kind of grew out of Superman, I guess, by Quest for Peace. I did not see that in the theater. Um, in fact, I don't think I had any interest in wanting to go see that by that time. So it showed you I did kind of grow out of that initial Superman phase, if you will, as I got into other things as I got older. But definitely the love for Superman never disappeared. It was always there. Just kind of faded a little bit as I got older, but definitely came back strong as I've been getting back into collecting and just enjoying the hobby again. Um, so that's that, just a little reflection back on 1979. And again, about a month out to the movie, so I will, we'll check in every week, but there's just a lot of anticipation. Got my ticket. Very excited about the movie. I think the movie. Um, we'll just have to see where we are by the time the movie comes out. I just think that I don't know. Maybe we do need to be more present in what's going on and being vocal about some of the issues that are that are impacting people's lives, um, and not just kind of escaping to the movie theater or like getting lost in a comic book and all that. And I do want to do have more of a, but I don't know. I just right now the motivation to do all that work is just not there when I'm focused on just getting through to the next day, right? Just making the money while it's still there, and oh, just a lot to kind of think and navigate. So uh, plus we've got travel plans this summer and just a lot going on. So it's just trying to take it one day at a time and hope not everything crashes all at once. with that being said, the last thing I'm going to kind of end with is I know it's a difficult time to talk about focusing on the hobby, but I think the success of the Gun Superman movie is going to essentially fuel uh, at least the next slate of gun related productions, meaning we've got a Supergirl movie coming out, we've got a Green Lantern uh, core television series coming out. Um, we've got an announcement that the Justice League movie is going to be out, as well as a Wonder Woman movie, which they're writing the script for now, as well as like Brave and the Bold. Um, so just a lot of these like projects that are kind of been announced, and really they also announced the Teen Titans movie. That's a big one. The Teen Titans is like, of all the things DC could have introduced, the fact that they're going with Teen Titans leads me to believe um, Gunn has a very specific plan with that IP. And in terms of who's going to be on the team, it's definitely going to be Nightwing, right? Um, and I think we're just going to get a situation where in the DCU, it's not going to be your typical, oh, it's Batman and Robin, then Robin becomes Nightwing. No, they're going to just um, introduce a version of Robin, maybe fill in the backstory that, he was, because everybody knows Batman by this point. They don't have to go back and, retell that origin story. Um, but yeah, when they introduce Nightwing, and then touch upon the fact that yeah, he was Batman's little sidekick for a long time, and then he became his own hero, and lost the suit, the Robin suit, and donned Nightwing. So there are a lot of things right now in play that, and again, if I were a collector, uh, that some of the DC books I'd focus on. And I've shared these all before, but these are 4 books that are still relatively affordable and haven't really bumped up in price yet. So I would get them now rather than later, because again, I think once the Gun movie is a success, and these movies are now going to be bankrolled and marketed and produced, then that's at that point it'll just be like a free for all for DC keys. So I'm going to start with the first one. This one's obviously uh, relevant because this is the Justice League Gunn is trying to bring to the DCU. We already have Maxwell Lord confirmed. We already have Guy Gardner on the team. We know we're getting Metamorpho, who ends up being on this team as well. Um, all these other characters are pretty core characters in terms of, well, not all, I should say most of these characters are core to the comic books. So this is one to keep an eye out for. Justice League, the Giffen de Mateus run from the 90s, the real sort of modern reset of the Justice League. Great comic books series as well. The one you should definitely go back and read and enjoy. Next, I mentioned before, the first appearance of Nightwing. Now, this is a pricey book. This is I think like an $80 book for a first appearance. It's not a first appearance of Dick Grayson. What it is the first appearance of Nightwing, which is I don't know. I think obviously the first appearance of Dick Grayson as Robin is going to be the really coveted book because that's the golden age book. Um, but the first appearance of Nightwing, I feel like Robin was a character in the past. You're not going to ever see Robin running beside Batman as his like ward and all that in the modern context. Um, just because it wouldn't fit, right? You have a billionaire adopting a single billionaire who's also, reportedly like sort of a playboy, right? That's Bruce Wayne's character. And then, any kind of social service agency allowing any kind of state agency allowing a person like that to adopt essentially another orphan, both probably dealing with trauma, right? So it's just one of those situations. Like, I don't know if it would make sense ever in that kind of context as a story. Who knows? Maybe, but fortunately for James Gunn, he can skip all that. He doesn't have to like create a scenario, or at least if he's gonna do it, he can just allude to it as Nightwing is introduced. And maybe Nightwing is going through because he definitely goes through a lot of like soul searching and transitions in becoming his own hero in this series, that meaning the new Teen Titans series. But we'll see how that's managed. But yeah, this is a big book. This obviously should be in terms of like significant characters, right? Comic book characters. I mean, this is up there with like the first appearance of like Deadpool. This is up there with like the first appearance of I don't know who else would be like someone like first appearance of Gambit, first appearance of nothing's coming to mind right now, but Jeff, you know what I mean? Like a major character who's just been around since, I mean, Robin is older than all the Marvel characters, particularly, like it's not the first appearance of Robin though, but you know what I mean? Like Robin's transition into Nightwing, that's a big thing because you're talking about a character with 100+ year history, or I should say 80+ year history, um, coming into his own in the Bronze Age or the Copper Age. So yeah, significant book. I would be targeting this book for sure. Luckily, I already have it. The other one is this one. This is still like a relatively affordable book for just the iconic comic book cover, iconic story. This is sort of the pinnacle event in this Crisis on Infinite Earths. I just feel like, we may not see the Crisis on Infinite Earths, but once DC books start to spike and people go after the DC keys like they go after the Marvel keys, this will be a book that will be highly coveted in any collection, right? So that's a book. And then I think ultimately books like this will spike after the movie success. This is already, I think, on a lot of people's radars, just because of the significance, right? This is really sort of a alternate version of where they're the first official sort of marriage between the two. I don't think this is the first marriage between the two. This is one of the many sort of Elseworld type marriage stories. But this is definitely, I think, like one of the more memorable covers and It's the 40th anniversary. There's a lot of things going on here. It's like you got this really uh, special story of their marriage. Um, you've got uh, an Action One homage here on the cover as well for the anniversary issue. You've got incredible, iconic art by Jose Garcia Lopez, and yeah, it's a Action One homage with the wedding card. I just a lot of things. Cool. I just love this comic book, and I just think if you're a Superman collector, this is kind of like a must-have for the collection. So there's a lot of like books to target. To be honest, I'm just showing you just a few of what I think will like ultimately be on the radar of you know collectors as DC content starts to take over. And then of course, I think long term, once you have, I think DC builds its reputation and is on even keel with the Marvel content. You're eventually going to have some studio exec reach across the aisle and say, let's do Marvel versus DC in some capacity. So all the Marvel DC versus DC books will spike as well. So it wouldn't hurt to have some of those copies in your collection, because I think that will ultimately be where we head eventually. Um, it's all about making money, and if fans want to see DC versus Marvel, it will happen. It's already happening in comic books after, since the last time we saw it was in the 90s, and now 30 years later, it's making a comeback. So uh, that's kind of where I am with my thoughts on if I were a collector and I was picking up stuff. Now, I am a collector and I am planning to pick up stuff this summer, but I'm still focused on Superman. So I'll just be focused on Superman, but picking up those books on the cheap, not at elevated prices. So hopefully, with everybody going after specific books, it in terms of pricing, maybe it'll have a little bit of an impact, but it won't impact it to the point where I can't buy Superman books. So I don't think that will happen. So just really looking forward to picking up more Superman books and you know books that ultimately like um, the books that I know I would enjoy. There's a lot of books still that I want to add to my collection that are Superman related. So it's just an endless want list of stuff. So if I can just knock off a few more books off that list this summer, mission accomplished. I don't think I will be working part time. I applied to a bunch of kind of part time, just weekend like jobs. Nothing's come back. I think it's a situation where there's just maybe not a lot of opportunities, coupled with the fact that there's probably a lot of college students, teens, kind of just filling those jobs because of the seasonality of it. So we'll see. If I can work a part-time job, I'd love to, and that could bankroll whatever books we pick up. But if we don't, not to say I'm not going to have a summer comic book budget, but it will be a lot less than what I'm used to spending during the summers, as long as this channel has been on. So yeah, we could see our comic book budget this summer be anything from $100 with no job to maybe $1,000 with a part-time job. So we'll just see. We'll have to see where the situation lands. I still do want to try to get some part-time weekend work and see where that goes. All right. Other than that, be sure to tune into Fanboy Prime's channel tomorrow morning. If you haven't checked out he and Lady Prime's comic book cover battles, it's really It's really one of the most satisfying uh, comic book related channels you'll ever. You'll just feel at home. You'll just feel like you're sitting in at their place as a guest, just having the grandest time. Lots of laughs. Uh, you know, everything's positive. So just really great channel and time. So please make your way over there. Just drop in, say hi. If you can watch and stay for the whole thing, please do. All right. This week's uh, Otaku Jukebox. We did this comic book to 1979, and it's like a lot being, summer and all the fun summer activities people have planned. It looks like not a lot of people tuning in this week, which is fine. We'll see you in the next one. Peace out.